Hey guys, I hope you're having a great day today. All right, so this story I have here, this true story, is called the Ibadan Forest of Horror. Trigger warning, because as I was sort of researching it, because I was looking for photos and stuff, I didn't realize what it was. It's bad, so trigger warning on that. It's so sad and disgusting. Happened in Nigeria, but anyways. In 2014, one of the worst crimes against humanity was uncovered in the Nigerian state of Ibadan. A motorcycle taxi driver by the name of Abakuda got a call from an acquaintance asking him to drive him to the Soko neighborhood of Ibadan. Abakuda then disappeared. The next day, the other motorcyclists he hung around with desperately searched for him. They recruited his family to help them look, but nobody could find him. During the search, one of his family members got a call from Abakuda. He said he didn't know where he was, but he felt like he was underground and may have been buried alive. He told them he had been on his way to the Soka forest the night before and had been jumped. His friends and family all went to Soka to look for him. One of the parties saw what looked like a motorcycle in the river. It was Abakuda's. The group continued the search all around the area of the river. Some of the men noticed a compound of buildings up a hill in the distance and went to check them out. As they approached, they heard anguished screams and desperate pleas for someone to bring water. The men were shot at from one of the buildings in the compound, and they fled, but only to retrieve the rest of the party and bring them to the suspicious place to keep searching for Abakuda. As many as 100 people arrived at the compound to investigate the cries and try and find Abakuda. One of the motorcyclists got a call from the missing man while they searched, saying he could hear people walking above him. As the party scoured the compound, they came across the most atrocious things they had ever seen. One building housed several prisoners who had been chained to the walls and large cement blocks. They were disoriented and emaciated. The men set about freeing the other prisoners and most simply fled into the forest, clearly still afraid of whoever was keeping them there. Another building on the compound housed hundreds of personal items belonging to men, women, and children. Clothing, bags, shoes, wallets, and ID cards littered the floor. Yet another building contained a massive pile of dead bodies. An estimated 50 decaying corpses were found in a heap in the building. In the surrounding area, the party also discovered the fresh remains of 20 more humans, and more than 100 skulls and countless dismembered body parts were scattered across the site and the forest. Oh my God. Abakuda stayed in touch with his friends and told them that he could still hear people walking around above him. Eventually, his phone ran out of batteries, and the lifeline went dark. The property would need to be carefully evacuated if they were to have any hope of ever finding Abakuda alive. By this point, the police had been notified of the search party's gruesome findings, and the Ibadan townspeople had heard about the atrocities of the Soka compound. People started showing up, desperate to either help, find their missing loved ones, or just see the unholy sight for themselves. The scene was extremely hectic. People were pointing fingers at everyone. The guards who had shot at the search party had not been identified, and nobody was sure if they were still there hiding, if they had fled the area, or if they had blended into the crowd of rescuers. At one point, a small group of men with guns were suspected to be the shooters and were being harassed by the townspeople, but police insisted they were on their side. There were stories of madmen running around with dismembered ears hanging off their bodies, and of malnourished people wasting away in the bushes that surrounded the compound. One man collapsed and died in front of his rescuers. As more and more people poured into the site demanding answers, the authorities started pushing back and asking them to leave. The scene was pure chaos. Riots broke out as the military descended on the site and refused to let people look for any signs of their missing friends and family. One source says the crowd set a man on fire who they thought was responsible for these atrocities. One person who knew of Abakuda's plight said, "We want to rescue people who are still underground and crying for help, but the police are saying no, we are angry." The police and military continued to refuse entry into to the townspeople. They even shot into the crowd attempting to control the madness, and several people died. People in nearby houses and businesses were also terrorized by the angry mob. The people who had initially been looking for Abakuda could easily hear the cries of the prisoners from outside the buildings. How could the neighbors of the compound not have heard, seen, or smelled anything? It turned out they had questioned the buildings and the horrific noises coming from them. They had been told that the compound was a mental institution. They were told that the anguished cries were from extremely mentally ill patients. One source even says that representatives were sent to the compound to ask questions, and the leader, a man with a tribal face tattoo, had confirmed that it was a mental institution. He even gave them a tour where they saw many as 100 people squatting in the rooms in one of the buildings but didn't see any dead bodies, body parts, or signs of torture. Forensic experts were called by the police to investigate the compound and collect whatever evidence they could. However, by the time they arrived, the government had already started tearing down the buildings on the site. Townspeople pleaded with officials to evacuate the underground or at least stop demolishing the site before any real investigation could be done. But the destruction went on. The government's hasty actions led most people to believe that it was involved in the crimes and didn't want anyone discovering anything incriminating. While most of the approximately 30 people who were rescued from the site had fled after their chains were cut, 6 people were sent to local hospitals. Only a few ever told the stories of their time in the camp. Cecilia, who was 72 at the time, 72 at the time of her rescue, was initially unable to speak. This is her right here you guys are looking at. When she had recovered and her relatives came to get her, it was discovered that she had been missing since 2008. She lived more than 5 hours' drive away in Edo State. She had left the house to go on the market 6 years prior to the discovery of the horrors and had never returned. Nafio, another survivor, said he was picked up in his town by people dressed as government officials. They had shoved him into a van and taken him straight to the Soka compound, where he remained for 7 months. A woman known as Titi said she was taken from right outside of her house by official-looking people who said they need to talk to her. She and Nafio both said that new victims were brought in every single day. They both confirmed that they never saw anyone actually murdered, but frequently witnessed bodies being carried out of the building where they were kept. What was the purpose of this hideous place? Most think it was selling body parts or ritualistic practices, or harvesting organs for sale in the black market. But that doesn't explain why some people were kept there for months or even years. It also offers no explanation as to why so many dismembered body parts were found simply scattered across the grounds, or why some corpses were dismembered but at least 20 were kept intact and thrown into a pile. Were the perpetrators looking for something specific in their victims? Why were some people kept for so long? Why were some decapitated or dismembered, but others weren't? Why was Abakuta kept underground, and how many more were buried alive under the compound, never even searched for by the government? There may never be answers to these horrific questions. Abakuta was never found, and the site of the atrocities is now a school, which was probably built over his dead body. That was a hard one. All right, you guys have a good night. Let me know what you think in the comment section, or even if you've heard this story before. I never had. This one, yeah, hit me. All right, you guys have a good night. Bye.